Princess had always lived in a world of calm voices, floating gardens, and soft silver light. Her people, though, believed harmony was the highest purpose of life. They avoided conflict so strictly that even the idea of shouting felt wrong to them. But harmony did not protect them forever. Far beyond their peaceful cities, an empire known as the Dominion was swallowing planets one after another. They were gentle, too gentle to stop what was coming. So when the human alliance sent envoys and proposed a treaty sealed through marriage, the council accepted before Princess could protest. The chosen human was Captain Rowan Hale, a decorated soldier known for his courage, discipline, and iron will. Had only seen humans in old broadcasts, loud, passionate, unpredictable beings. She never imagined she would marry one. The wedding took place on a neutral station hovering between both empires, wore a shimmering cloak that changed colors when she breathed. Rowan wore a black military uniform filled with quiet medals. He did not smile, but his eyes were steady, warm in their own way. When he spoke his vow, his voice carried strength, but also something she had not expected, gentleness. "I will protect your people as if they were my own," he said. "Not because this treaty demands it, but because no one deserves to live in fear." Did not know how to answer. She simply nodded, though her heart trembled. Everything about Rowan felt large, his presence, his steps, even his silence. But there was no cruelty in him, only purpose. After the ceremony, they traveled to the joint defense station called Helios 9. Humans ran through the halls with loud voices and heavy boots, moved softly, trying not to flinch every time a siren beeped or machinery clanked. Rowan noticed each time she stiffened. "You're safe," he said once, walking beside her. "Noise doesn't mean danger here." To her surprise, he adjusted his pace to match hers. If she lingered to observe something new, he waited. If a group of soldiers laughed too loudly, he steered her gently away. He spoke little, but everything he did carried a strange tenderness she was not expecting from a warrior. Their quarters contained a small, shared living room. Rowan stayed mostly on his side, busy with reports and tactical maps. Spent hours watching the stars through the window. At first, they lived like strangers, but slowly she began noticing small things about him. How he whispered to himself when planning strategies. How he always cleaned his boots before entering the room. How he paused whenever she passed by, as if making sure she was comfortable. One night she asked quietly, "Do humans ever fear war?" Rowan looked at her for a long moment. "We fear losing the people we protect. That fear keeps us fighting." His answer stayed in her mind long after he returned to work. Weeks passed and started joining him during observation shifts. They stood side by side, watching the swirling nebula outside. Rowan rarely spoke, but she felt safe beside him, as if the metal walls themselves listened to him. Peace lasted only until the day the Dominion fleet appeared on their scanners. The alarm shook the walls, his heart froze. The station lights turned red and soldiers ran in every direction. Rowan placed a hand on her arm, steady but full of urgency. "Go with the civilians," he said. "I'll be on the front line." "You cannot fight them alone," she whispered. He gave a short breath, almost like a sad laugh. "I won't be alone, my team is ready." "But you take the most risk," she said, her voice breaking. "Why?" Rowan met her eyes, blue, calm, determined. "Because peace only exists when someone is willing to stand in front of danger." Watched him walk toward the battle deck with firm steps, shoulders straight, no fear in his movements. For the first time, she understood why humans were trusted across the galaxy. He was ready to fight for a people who were not his. For a princess he barely knew. For peace he believed was worth the cost. And she feared he might not return the moment Rowan stepped onto the command deck. A heavy silence fell across the station. Soldiers stopped running and looked at him the way lost travelers look at a lighthouse. He didn't shout. He didn't panic. He simply walked forward with calm eyes, as if danger itself paused to understand him. Princess watched from behind the secure barrier as the humans prepared for combat. She felt useless, a princess raised for diplomacy, not war. Her people believed in songs, ceremonies, and kind voices. But none of those could stop the Dominion ships gathering like dark wings outside the station. Rowan stood at the center of the room, surrounded by glowing screens. "Report," he said. 30 enemy cruisers approaching. Their lead ship has charged weapons, a young officer replied. Rowan nodded once. "Prepare shields, evacuate non-combat crew to the lower shelters. Infantry teams hold positions." His voice was steady, not loud, yet everyone followed him instantly. Could feel the shift in the air, fear turning into focused courage. A soft vibration traveled through the floor as the first enemy shot struck the shield. Flinched. Humans barely reacted. They were used to this kind of shaking, used to living in a universe where peace had to be fought for. Rowan walked toward the tactical controls. "They're testing our defenses," he said. "They think we'll break quickly." Stepped closer to the transparent barrier separating her from the battle deck. "Will we break?" she asked. He turned just slightly toward her. "Not today." The second impact came harder. Alarms flashed red. Engineers shouted numbers she didn't understand. Somewhere down the corridor, sparks burst from a power line. Rowan stayed calm. "Rotate shield frequency, divert energy from the cargo ring, keep the central core stable." Could feel tears building in her eyes, not from fear for herself, but for him. He was standing in the open, giving orders, absorbing pressure from every direction. He wasn't afraid of death, but she was afraid of his death. The Dominion ships fired again, and this time the shield flickered. "Captain," someone yelled, "Section 3 is overheating." Rowan moved closer to the screen. "Seal that section, reroute through auxiliary conduits." "But that will cut off power to the lower quarters," the engineer protested. "Do it anyway," Rowan ordered. "We lose the shield, we lose everything." Held her breath. He was choosing danger for some to save all. Humans were complex that way, always ready to risk, always ready to bleed, but never ready to quit. Suddenly, a deep explosion echoed from the far side of the station. The lights blinked. The deck shook violently. For a moment, the alarm stopped, and then returned louder. "They're boarding," a soldier shouted. "Enemy shuttles locked onto hull points." Rowan grabbed a rifle from the wall and turned to his team. "All squads, prepare for close combat. Hold the corridors. Do not let them reach the civilian sections." Felt her heart drop. "You are going out there?" she asked, voice shaking. He met her gaze through the barrier. "Yes." "You could die." Rowan didn't look away. Everyone could die. That's what makes protecting others important. Before she could speak again, the door to the battle deck opened with a sharp hiss. Rowan stepped toward it, but then paused. He looked at her one last time, and in that look she saw something she had not expected, fear not for himself, but for her. "Stay safe, princess," he said softly. "I'll come back." The door slid shut behind him. Pressed her hand to the barrier. Her breath came uneven. She wanted to scream for him to stop. She wanted to run after him. But she stayed where she was, trembling, watching soldiers march toward danger with him at the front. Rowan Hale did not walk like a man going to battle. He walked like a man, ready to hold the universe back with his own hands. And she prayed he truly would return. The corridors of Helios 9 were chaotic. Sparks fell from walls, alarms screamed in shrill tones, and the Dominion boarding forces moved with deadly precision. Yet in the middle of it all, Captain Rowan Hale moved like a storm contained in human form. Watching from the observation deck, barely recognized the man who had seemed calm and quiet in peace. Now he was a whirlwind of controlled fury, leading his team, protecting every inch of the station. Rowan's rifle barked like thunder as he fired with exact aim. Each shot felled a boarding trooper before it could reach a civilian sector. He ducked, rolled, and struck with the precision of someone trained to survive every impossible scenario. His breath caught in her throat. Humans were loud and reckless, but Rowan was beyond normal human skill. He was magnificent, terrifying, godlike. A Dominion trooper lunged at him from a side corridor. Rowan caught the attacker mid-charge, twisting and using his own momentum to hurl him through the air. The impact shook the floor, gasped. She had never seen someone fight like that. Every movement was deliberate, every strike controlled. It was not just skill, it was art, and it was beautiful. But beauty carried danger. Rowan was alone in a small section of the station now, surrounded on three sides by enemies. He had no shields, no cover, only himself, and yet he did not hesitate. His eyes flicked from target to target, assessing, calculating. He moved like he could see the future of every strike before it happened. "Captain," a soldier called, firing from behind a barricade. "We're pinned down." Rowan turned, delivering a glance that burned with calm authority. "Hold position. I will clear the path." He sprinted forward, vaulting over debris. His boots landed silently on the metal floor, but every motion left Dominion troopers reeling. He disarmed one with a flick of his wrist, sent another crashing into a wall with a shoulder strike, and threw a smoke grenade that blanketed the corridor in gray haze. Could see the plume curling upward, and for a moment she thought she was watching a living god, a god who could fight death itself. Her heart ached, not from fear but from awe. Rowan paused at the junction where the enemy's main boarding point connected to the civilian sector. Through the smoke, he saw young human soldiers frozen in fear. He didn't shout. He didn't panic. He simply drew himself taller, squared his shoulders, and stepped into the fray. Where he went, enemies fell. Where he stood, his soldiers felt courage. It was impossible to explain. The humans looked at him and remembered why they followed him, even in the face of death. Pressed her hands against the observation glass. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She had never thought she would feel love and fear at the same time, but Rowan made both easy to feel. He was not just a protector. He was a force of nature. He was fighting for her people, and for a peace that hung by the thinnest of threads. A loud explosion shook the corridor behind him, knocking him off balance. He rolled, firing as he went, and grabbed the nearest soldier to pull them from danger. Then, almost silently, he delivered a swift kick that sent a Dominion trooper tumbling down the stairs. His eyes widened. He was everywhere at once, moving faster than she could follow, striking harder than anything she imagined humans could endure. And yet, beneath the godlike power, she saw something else. Humanity, compassion. He never killed recklessly. Every strike protected someone else. Every dodge shielded another life. He was a war machine with a human heart, a human willing to die so that others could live. For the first time since this nightmare began, felt hope. The Dominion had underestimated humans. They had underestimated Rowan Hale. And maybe, just maybe, they could survive this. But the battle was far from over. Dominion reinforcements were arriving, faster than anyone expected. The observation deck trembled under the shockwaves of incoming fire. Pressed closer to the glass, whispering prayers she had never spoken aloud. "Please come back," she whispered. "Please come back to us." And somewhere down there, amidst the smoke and fire, Rowan's eyes flicked upward, meeting hers even for a fraction of a second. A silent promise passed between them. He would not fall, not while she waited, not while the station and her people still needed him. The Dominion forces surged deeper into Helios 9. Explosions rattled every corridor, sending sparks and twisted metal into the air. Smoke filled the station like a choking fog, hiding shadows of enemies moving silently, ready to strike. But Captain Rowan Hale did not falter. His rifle glowed faintly in the emergency lights as he moved with unmatched precision. Each shot was calculated, each movement deliberate. He became the shield and the spear all at once, a human who seemed larger than life. Princess watched from the observation deck, trembling. She had never imagined she would see a human fight like this. It was not just skill or strength. It was something beyond. Rowan's presence alone gave courage to those around him. Soldiers who had been frozen with fear now stood taller, fired faster, and moved with purpose. He carried hope in every step, and it struck with the force of a storm, hope she had almost forgotten. A squad of Dominion troopers appeared from a shattered corridor. Rowan fired a controlled burst, sending them sprawling. Before they could recover, he vaulted over a railing, rolling to his feet and disarming another group with his bare hands. Every motion was fluid, precise, deadly. And yet, even in this chaos, he saved anyone in danger, pulling a young human soldier out of the line of fire, shielding them with his own body. "Captain," a voice shouted from behind. A breach was detected near the civilian evacuation zone. Rowan's jaw tightened. He did not hesitate. He sprinted down the smoke-filled corridor, smoke swirling around him like a cloak of shadows, his every movement a combination of fury and grace. His chest ached. She knew what he was doing. He was walking straight into danger to protect people who were not even his. And yet she could not look away. She pressed her hands against the glass, her voice barely a whisper. Don't die, please." Rowan rounded a corner and came face to face with a Dominion commander. The man was heavily armored, bristling with weapons. He laughed, thinking he had the advantage. Rowan tilted his head slightly, assessing, then moved faster than the human eye could track. In a heartbeat, the commander was disarmed, stumbling backward, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Rowan did not gloat. He only continued, moving toward the civilian sector like a force of nature. Inside, saw families huddled in fear. Children clutched their parents and adults tried to shield those too young to understand. Rowan burst through the entrance, his presence alone forcing Dominion troopers to retreat. He pointed, and the humans moved efficiently, evacuating civilians. His heart filled with both relief and awe. He fought not for glory, not for himself, but for lives that could never repay him. Suddenly, the station shook violently. A Dominion ship had breached the outer hull. Fires erupted, filling the air with heat and smoke. Rowan did not pause. He lifted a heavy metal beam to barricade the path, using it to protect a group of civilians from debris. Sparks rained down, but he moved through them without hesitation. His eyes filled with tears. She could not understand how a human could endure so much and still act with such courage, such care. She wanted to run to him, to hold him, to keep him safe. But the glass wall separated them, and she realized something vital. His strength was not just in his arms, his skill, or his weapons. It was in his heart. He was willing to endure anything, fight anything, die if necessary for others. As Rowan guided the last group of civilians toward the emergency shuttles, he glanced upward. Their eyes met for the briefest moment, hers full of fear, awe, and something she could not name, his full of determination, promise, and warmth. He could not speak. There was no time, but the look alone was enough. Felt it deep inside her chest. He would not let them fall. He would not let her fall. And in that instant, she understood something profound. Humans were fragile, fleeting, and mortal. Yet their spirit could burn brighter than any star. Rowan Hale was proof. He was a human. He was a warrior. And he was hers in the truest sense, not by marriage or treaty, but by courage, sacrifice, and the fire of his soul. The battle was far from over. The Dominion would not yield easily. But Rowan Hale had already changed everything. He had become the shield of the innocent, the sword of justice, and a beacon of hope in the darkness. Whispered again, clutching the glass like a lifeline. "Come back to me, Captain, come back to us." And she knew somehow deep inside that he would. The Dominion boarding force pressed harder. Smoke and fire filled every corridor, twisting the once bright station into a labyrinth of shadows. Captain Rowan Hale moved through it like a human storm, his rifle and instincts working together in perfect rhythm. Every step he took seemed measured, but watching from above, it looked like he was everywhere at once, striking enemies, shielding soldiers, guiding civilians, an unstoppable force. Yet this time, Rowan faced something different. The Dominion commander who had survived earlier returned, more calculated and cruel. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a predator, relentless and cunning. And he had one clear target, Rowan. "Captain," a soldier shouted, "he's heading for you." Rowan's eyes narrowed, but his movements did not falter. He moved to intercept, blocking the path to the civilians. The corridor echoed with gunfire and screams. Sparks rained from damaged conduits, and the air was thick with smoke and heat. His heart raced. She pressed her hands to the observation glass, unable to breathe. Rowan met the commander head-on. The clash was brutal, metal against metal, fists against armor, human skill against raw aggression. Rowan moved like a god of war, anticipating every strike, countering with impossible speed. Yet he was not invincible. A heavy blow knocked him to one knee and gasped as he grunted in pain. But he rose again, unyielding. Every strike he delivered was precise, not meant to kill recklessly, but to protect. He saw a young soldier frozen in fear beside the corridor. With one motion, Rowan swept him out of harm's way, pushing him behind a wall while taking the enemy's full attention. Felt tears sting her eyes. He was risking himself for others again, without hesitation, without complaint. The Dominion commander lunged with a mechanical blade, forcing Rowan back. Sparks flew as metal clashed. Rowan dodged, rolled, and grabbed a nearby pipe, swinging it with perfect timing to knock the blade aside. He landed a punch that sent the enemy staggering into a wall, and then followed with a controlled series of strikes, disarming and incapacitating him. It was brutal, but every motion carried purpose. Every strike saved someone else. His chest ached. She had never seen courage like this, never seen a human endure so much and remain unbroken. He was not just fighting. He was fighting for life itself, for hers, for the civilians, for a chance at peace. Suddenly, the station shuddered violently. A massive explosion shook the walls. Rowan lost his footing for a moment, then recovered instantly. Smoke and debris filled the corridor, and yet, even there, he found the soldiers in danger, grabbed them, and moved them toward safety. "Captain," one shouted, pointing toward a gap in the hull. "It's collapsing." Without hesitation, Rowan sprinted into the danger. His body shielded the civilians as the floor cracked and sparks shot like lightning. He vaulted over broken metal, catching a young child in his arms mid-jump and setting them safely on the other side. Hands pressed harder against the glass. Her heart felt like it might burst. Even as the Dominion regrouped, Rowan never wavered. His voice, calm but commanding, guided every soldier, giving hope when there was none. Realized then that humans were fragile, but they could also be immortal in spirit. Rowan embodied that. Every strike, every leap, every act of protection carried the weight of humanity's strength. When the corridor finally fell silent, Rowan stood amid the smoke and chaos. His chest heaved, his uniform scorched, his hands raw, but he had saved everyone in that section. He looked up toward the observation deck. Their eyes met again, hers wide with awe and fear, his full of reassurance and something tender she had never seen in a warrior before. His tears fell freely now. She whispered through the glass, "You are more than a human, you are a god among us." And in that moment, Rowan Hale, battered, burned, and exhausted, gave her the smallest, fleeting smile. Not a smile of triumph, but a promise he would not stop. He would not let her world fall. He would fight, even if it cost him everything. The battle was far from over, but Rowan's courage had already lit a spark in the darkness, one that would not die. The station still smoldered from the battle. Smoke curled through the halls, alarms echoed in intermittent bursts, and the once orderly corridors were now by fire and debris. Princess wandered among the evacuated civilians, her heart still pounding from the sight of Captain Rowan Hale's godlike skill. But something had shifted. The danger had not ended. The Dominion still pressed, relentless, and Rowan had carried every burden of defense on his shoulders. She approached the observation deck again, hoping to see him, but the deck was empty. Her stomach tightened. He was still out there, moving through smoke and chaos, taking every risk, and she realized for the first time the human cost of such courage. Humans could endure pain, yes, but they were mortal. And Rowan, he was pushing himself past every limit. A sudden alert sounded. Rowan's voice came over the station intercom, calm but commanding. "All non-combatants must evacuate to the lower sections. I will hold the primary corridors." His words were steady, but could imagine the strain behind them. Even gods had limits, and she knew Rowan was reaching them. She pressed her hands to the glass, tears streaming. Don't hurt yourself for them," she whispered. "Please." But Rowan's eyes, even through the camera feed, showed no hesitation. They were filled with resolve, fire, and a deep, unwavering loyalty to life. He moved through the corridors, dodging falling debris, disarming Dominion troopers, and guiding frightened humans to safety. He was everywhere at once, striking, shielding, calculating. Every step was dangerous, but he did not pause. Every move cost him something, yet he gave all of it freely. His mind raced. How could one human bear so much? How could he keep moving, fighting, and protecting without faltering? She had read about human resilience, about their chaotic but powerful nature. But seeing it firsthand, it was overwhelming. She felt awe and fear entwined in her chest, awe for his strength, fear for what he might lose. Rowan paused in a corridor where a fire had blocked the exit. Flames licked the walls, heat roaring like a beast. A group of civilians froze, unable to move. Rowan didn't hesitate. He grabbed a fallen metal beam, using it to shield them as he guided them through the fire. Sparks rained down, searing close enough to singe hair and clothing, pressed against the glass harder, willing him to move faster to survive. One of the civilians stumbled. Rowan dropped the beam, caught them mid-fall, and pushed them to safety. Pain flared across his arm from the heat, and a small cut bled along his cheek, but he barely noticed. The mission mattered more than himself. His chest tightened. She had always admired humans from afar, their determination, their chaos, their unbroken will. But watching Rowan, one human, standing like a god against impossible odds, she realized the truth. Humanity was fragile, yes, but it could rise higher than any other species when courage, loyalty, and love drove it. Rowan fought not for glory, not for orders, but because he believed in protecting life, in preserving peace, and that belief made him unstoppable. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the station. Rowan was thrown backward, hitting the wall with a heavy thud. He grunted, pain flashing across his face, but he pushed himself up. A Dominion trooper advanced toward a group of civilians. Without hesitation, Rowan lunged, disarming and incapacitating the enemy with precise strikes. Every movement, every action was a dance of human determination, of selfless courage. As tears fell freely, she could not contain her fear or her admiration. "Please, survive," she whispered. "Come back to us, Rowan." Through the chaos, Rowan's eyes found the observation deck, and for the briefest moment their gaze met. No words were needed. The promise was clear. He would keep fighting no matter the cost, because hope and life were worth every scar, every drop of blood, every risk. And in that moment understood the ultimate truth of humans. They were fragile, mortal, and yet capable of godlike courage when driven by love, loyalty, and a desire to protect others. Rowan Hale embodied all of it. The station was still under siege. The battle was far from over. But one thing was certain: as long as Rowan lived, as long as he fought, hope would not die. Pressed her forehead to the glass. "Please, don't give up," she whispered. "I can't bear to lose you." And somewhere through smoke, fire, and chaos, Rowan moved forward, carrying the weight of her hope, the lives of innocents, and the spirit of humanity itself. The final wave of Dominion attackers struck Helios 9 with relentless fury. The station trembled under the weight of explosions, fire, and smoke. But Captain Rowan Hale moved through it with a calm that reason. His body was scratched, scorched, and bleeding, yet his eyes burned with an unyielding fire. Every motion was precise, every strike purposeful. He was no longer just a soldier. He was the embodiment of human courage, the living proof that one person could change the course of events. Princess watched from the observation deck, her hands trembling, her heart pounding in her chest. She had seen him fight through every danger, every explosion, every impossible challenge. But the final battle was the most dangerous. Dominion boarding ships had breached the central core. If they succeeded, the station would fall, and countless lives would be lost. Rowan did not hesitate. He charged into the heart of the chaos, his rifle roaring, his fists striking with godlike precision. Each enemy who dared stand against him fell, but he did not move blindly. He shielded soldiers, guided civilians, and anticipated every attack. Every action carried the weight of strategy and the tenderness of a protector. A massive shockwave threw him across the corridor. Pain lanced through his side and his vision blurred. For a heartbeat, he considered stopping, but then he heard it. The frightened cries of civilians, the shouts of human soldiers, the faint whimper of those who could not escape on their own. Rowan pushed through the pain, rising again. He was the last line of defense, and he would not fail. He reached the central core. Dominion troops had surrounded the area, weapons raised, ready to destroy everything. Rowan planted a charge, not to destroy, but to create a safe path. Sparks flew, metal groaned, and fire erupted around him. He moved with unrelenting courage, taking calculated risks, and finally the path was cleared. Civilians streamed through, safe for the first time in hours. Princess could hardly breathe. Her hands were pressed to the glass, tears streaming freely. She whispered, "Please come back, please." Rowan caught sight of her even through the smoke and chaos. For a brief moment, their eyes met. No words were spoken, but the promise was clear. He was fighting for her people, and he would return. The final Dominion officer lunged at him, the last obstacle between victory and catastrophe. Rowan dodged, countered, and disarmed him with unmatched skill. Then, with one decisive strike, he incapacitated the enemy. The station shook one last time, and silence fell. The Dominion fleet began retreating, unable to continue against the humans' indomitable courage. Exhausted, wounded, and scorched, Rowan stood amid the smoke and ruins. The station had survived. Lives had been saved. Peace had been preserved. And he had done it all not for glory, not for medals, but because it was the right thing to do. Slowly, he made his way to the observation deck. Princess ran to him as he stepped through the doorway, staggering slightly from exhaustion. She wrapped her arms around him, sobbing with relief and awe. You survived," she whispered. I was so afraid I'd lose you." Rowan smiled faintly, his lips cracked, his uniform torn, his body bruised. But his eyes were full of warmth and humor, the humanity that had carried him through fire and death. "I promised," he said softly. "I always keep my promises." Pressed her forehead to his chest, feeling his heartbeat. He had been more than a protector. He had been a god of war, a guardian, and a human willing to risk everything for life and hope. She realized then that humans, fragile as they were, could achieve greatness not because of power, but because of heart. The station began repairs. Survivors emerged, looking at Rowan with awe, respect, and gratitude. But he barely noticed them. His eyes were on, she had seen him fight, and she had understood the depth of human courage. And now she understood something else. She loved him not because of the marriage that had been arranged, but because of the man who had fought like a god for peace for others and for her. Days later, the council praised him, humans hailed him, and the Dominion fleet retreated far into the void. But for Rowan victory was quieter. It was in the hands held, the soft smiles, and the understanding that true strength came not from domination, but from courage, sacrifice, and love. Whispered again, wrapping her arms around him. "Married for peace, but I think I found something much greater." Rowan kissed her forehead gently. "We fought for the world, now let's live in it together." And for the first time in a long time, Princess felt a peace deeper than any treaty. She had witnessed a human fight like a god of war, and she had discovered the heart that made humans truly extraordinary. The stars shone brighter outside Helios 9, as if honoring the courage of one man and the hope he carried for all.